Hello, bridge builders! I'm here with some exciting news. The first volume of interviews is now available on Amazon.com. The link can be found at eatlunchandboardgame.com. I promise that all proceeds from sales of this book will go right back into this podcast and channel. Whether that is new and better audio equipment for the podcast, or video equipment for the YouTube channel, or even more games to review, the money will not be wasted. Click over to Amazon and get your copy of Eat Lunch and Board Game, the first course today. And thank you for supporting the show. All right, welcome back to Lunch and Board Game. I'm your host, Adam Collins, and with me today is game designer with Dastardly Fun Entertainment, Spencer Mohr. Spencer, how are you doing out there in Mountain Time?
Doing pretty good. We actually just got some snow the other day.
I was going to ask, did you get snow already?
Yeah. Snow decided to make its way in. It does happen. It might not stick though. That's the thing is, Halloween, ever since I was young, you have to plan a Halloween costume with it being snow and without, because honestly, it could snow now, be completely gone, and then snow again before Halloween. Who really knows? But might stick around for a little bit, but I'm hoping it's gonna melt pretty soon.
Yeah, I have the same issue here in St. Louis. One year I remember it being so cold and so windy, and I felt so bad because my kid was dressed up like a car, like he was driving a car. So he had this giant cardboard box around him. So he was just catching all the wind. It was just like, pivoting. And then the next year it was so hot that we were all like just drenched in sweat walking around because it was so hot and humid. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. So yeah, good old Halloween. Never know from year to year.
Exactly.
So, Spencer, we have never actually met. This is the first time we've actually been talking, but I am familiar with Dastardly Fun Entertainment. I played your game Crime Wave, which is a card game, and you were one of the finalists in the design contest that Eat Lunch and Board Game sponsored with your game Dastardly Drivers, and it was one of our top 3 games. And I'm happy that you are going forward with it because it is a lot of fun. So tell us about Dastardly Drivers. What is Dastardly Drivers?
Yeah, so Dastardly Drivers it's a game where you build out a racetrack to start, and that could be done cooperatively. It could just be one person doing it. But it really adds a really fun replayability to the game, because every game is going to be different. Now, we do have some pre-made tracks that you can use if you're not kind of feeling out what you want to do with it. But as you start playing more, you kind of want to say, oh, I want to try to make this track more interesting and more different than what I've played before. So that's kind of the first major aspect of it, is building out this track. And then the next is the core gameplay of playing cards. Now, with the cards, you play 3 of them face down in order, 1, 2, 3, and then the turn order is actually the person who is in last place gets to go first. That way, it's not just, the first player person can't just pull ahead and keep on winning. The turn order constantly changes at the end of every round, which makes things a lot more interesting.
Well, but also what you do is you put your cards down 1, 2, 3, but it's a program style game.
Yes, so
and it's locked. So once you put them down, you can't you cannot make a decision change. Even as your next card has now been completely fouled up. Like what you intended is absolutely not going to happen. As a matter of fact, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But
it's frustrating. Yes, it's frustrating because it makes it more interesting. So you have to also think about what you want to do, but also what they might do to you.
Yes. And you have and so it's a little bit of hand management too, because you can add new cards to your hand. But it's also, like, I don't want to say a memory game, but it is a memory game of what cards have my opponents already played that can completely foul up what I want to do. And sometimes being in last place is not the worst place to be. because
Exactly.
in
You can set up a little bit more.
your first card, you are guaranteed it's going to do what you want it to do. Now
Exactly.
after that, all hell can break loose. But
Yes.
that first card, and that's what we really liked about the game, was that programming aspect of it.
Mhm.
There's a lot of games out there like that are way more complicated, take way more time, and that's what we liked about this one, was that it easily fit in a lunch hour, which was part of the
Mhm.
criteria set forth, is that it is a lunchtime game.
Mhm.
And but the programmability is what made it entertaining. And then, like you said at the beginning, it's a tile game. You start off with tiles to build the track, and it's going to be an easy game for people to buy expansions for. Like, you come up with new ideas for
Mhm.
tiles, new
Exactly.
ideas for cards. It's a very evergreen game, and it was a lot of fun, and we had a lot of fun with it. So I'm glad that you're bringing it out.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. Like I said, top 3.
Mhm.
Unfortunately for you, it was not the winner, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm glad
Mhm.
you hit on, and that's what made it so fun, was the programmability and the
Mhm.
replayability were both very high in that game. So
Mhm.
when is it coming out, or is it already out?
We just finished the crowd sale for it, and I absolutely love the Game Crafters crowd sale, which is slightly different than the Kickstarter method, because with Game Crafter crowd sales, as a consumer, the game is done. Granted, it might not be good. It could still be a bad game, and that's always a possibility. But it's done. It's there. It's shippable. It's in a state that it's gonna work as expected, which is one thing that I really really like about the Game Crafter, and especially as someone who also likes to play games and Kickstarters and whatever. Sometimes with Kickstarters you don't really know how it's going to be, because sometimes the game isn't even done, and then you run into other problems like that. Whereas in this case, it's done. You know it's done, and you know it's going to be in a shippable state. So yeah, we just finished the crowd sale, which is awesome. Hopefully should be arriving by the end of beginning of next year. Generally, with the crowd sales, it does ship. It'll take a little bit longer to ship than if you just buy a one-off copy. But yeah, we're very happy that we got it over the finish line.
But yeah, I mean, trust me, that's never the easy part.
Hmm.
But yeah, so for sure, with the crowd sales and this time of year, GameCrafter tends to be very, very busy.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm not surprised when you said that it's going to take some time. So if
Hmm.
you don't mind me asking, how did it end up doing?
We got 51 copies sold, which
That's
was
good.
slightly less than Crime Wave. Crime Wave, we were about 80 or 90. It is a bigger game, a little bit more expensive,
Yeah,
shipping as
so
well.
yeah, so Crime Wave. Let's talk about that. A listener actually suggested I reach out to you.
Oh, nice.
Uh, that's how I got a hold of you in the first place about Crime
Hmm.
Wave. So Crime Wave is another interesting, easily played in a lunch hour game.
Hmm.
Um, and that one is very love letter esque,
Hmm.
but more. I think that's the
Yes.
best way I can put it.
Yeah, we
Um,
try not to say it like that, but yeah, that's basically what our inspiration was, really. Um, is we all work together. Actually, we'd always play games at lunch, and just after a while, like sometimes we'd play Crime Wave. Sorry, we'd play Love Letter, specifically the Batman version, and
that's
then
the
we'd also
version
play
I have.
so good, and like the little tokens, which is a lot nicer, and yeah, it's just great game. We play that. We'd play Crib. We'd play a few other kind of lunch games. And after a while, we were like, you know what? Like, Love Letter is fun, but like it could be more. Like, it could be so interesting. And then we just slowly but surely started adding more rules, adding more cards, prototyping it. We had a few interesting cases of like, the cards that are the same. The six of the detectives. Having it being with like playing cards is kind of tough, because then on cards where you can see all the cards, which detective is going to who. So you kind of cheese it a little bit. But once we got some prototypes running, then it like really started to take off, and we're like, you know what? Let's actually like make this into a thing. Let's do this.
Why not?
Yeah,
You don't know what's going to happen with it. No,
exactly.
it's a lot of fun, and so it's a fun game where you're. It's kind of like like cops and robbers almost,
Hmm.
but it is very, yeah, love letter esque. But there's more going on. There's ways to just go out and score without having to be the last one standing.
Mm-hmm.
There's also ways to automatically lose, which I can attest is easy enough to do.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I play with a couple of different groups of people. Everybody seems to uh, enjoy it that I've played it with.
Nice.
It plays so easy, and with as many people that know Love Letter, using that as a jumping off point is never a bad thing.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's like Love Letter, but not. So, but no, Crime Wave, a lot of fun. And both of your games are available on the Game Crafter, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, so you can go right to the gamecrafter.com, hit the search bar, type it in, it'll pop right up. Both of them are really good. Like I said, both of them are a lot of fun. Both of them have a pretty, high replayability, which is never a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Spencer, how did you get into gaming?
Um, I think growing up, I was definitely a lot more into video games as a child. So that playing with other people, especially back in the uh, couch co-op days, a lot of Halo back in the day. So I was definitely more into the video game side of things. And then after a while, I was actually hanging out with one of my friend's older brothers who was playing Settlers, and kind of that was the jumping off point. I think a jumping off point for a lot of people, because that, in my
Absolutely.
opinion, that game really just opened up the floodgates of the doors of like what games could be, and not just Monopoly or Life or those handful of board games that were around. And they were good games, don't get me wrong, but that was kind of the first foray into board games. And after that, multiple board game groups, and yeah, playing at lunch with these coworkers, friends of mine, and so yeah, that's the jumping off point. I feel like for a lot of people,
So how do you say it? The Settlers of
Catan.
Oh, wrong.
I know it's Catan. It really depends on how I'm like feeling too.
Yeah. So playing games at lunch, always a good time. Is that where so how many of you are there in Dastardly Fun Entertainment?
So originally started with four of us, all working at the same company in various aspects. And then, unfortunately, one of the members, just too busy, family, kids, had to back out kind of right as we were launching Crime Wave. So that was kind of their last game that they worked on. And then now there's just three of us who worked fully on Dastardly Drivers.
So, do you still play games at lunch?
Right now, I do not. I'm currently working remote, which definitely makes it difficult to play games at lunch with people. But I do try to play games as much as I can. I actually just visited those friends a little while ago. We played a lot of board games and hung out and had a good time. So board games are still very, very precious to me. But yeah, unfortunately, not always during lunch.
Yeah. So when you guys were playing, what were you playing? If you had a 60-minute full lunch hour, what would you bust out?
One of my always go-tos that I absolutely love is Betrayal at the House on the Hill. It's always very thematic, and I love when other people read the event cards to you. It kind of adds a more air of mysterious, and you can do some dramatic readings and be like, "Oh yeah." Absolutely love that game. It is definitely one of my favorites. There are times where it can be a little unbalanced depending on how many people are playing, what the haunt is, and it's not a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just so much fun, so much theme around it that I just absolutely adore every time.
It's almost perfect because of the imbalance.
Yes, exactly.
Because every haunt is different, and there's so
Mm-hmm.
many different haunts,
Mm-hmm.
and the replayability of the fact that you don't know which haunt's going to happen, when
Mm-hmm.
it's going to happen, who it's going to happen to,
Yes.
and the layout of the house that you're in. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of replayability baked into that, and I I'd like to play more at lunch, but man, my group, I think it would take too long.
Yeah. You need a lot of people who know what they're doing in order to get it in that half an hour mark.
Yeah. Anytime. I mean, we can usually bleed up to an hour. It's when you try to go, the 75-minute mark.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Yeah.
I shouldn't. Maybe, you
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
play that game, and it's one of those things where like, okay. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a fun one. I definitely wish I played it more. I don't even know where my
Mhm.
copy is.
We actually also, well, what I've done personally is anytime I get a new haunt, I mark it in the spreadsheet, kind of how many players who won, like what it was kind of about, just to kind of know, oh, I've played this one before, or like, oh yeah, I've not played this one before.
Nothing wrong with spreadsheets and board gaming. I can tell you that right now.
Hmm.
What about a lunch half hour? You only have 30 minutes.
30 minutes, I always like Exploding Kittens. Super fun, super easy. Um, and I like it's just the one deck. You get to the bottom and you're done. You
Yep.
know, a lot of the times you get to the point at the end where you're like, it's your cards against their cards. That's all it is, and half of it's luck of what you draw. But just so much fun. How do you play it? Okay, I'm gonna play this first and that, or how am I gonna findangle it to make it work? Yeah, I absolutely love that game. So much
No,
fun.
it's that game again, kind of like Catan, where like it opened people's eyes because it was such a huge Kickstarter at the time. It was such
Hmm.
um like a mainstream party game by accident that I mean it was like a happy accident the way all that came together for them over there, and they've been very successful with it. So, but it's
Hmm.
another game that I think people. I mean, every game had this detractors, right? But I think it's one of those games that has to be there in the discussion of modern board gaming because of the fact that it changed the landscape.
Hmm.
It brought in the family crowd, the groups and everything to
Yes,
Kickstarter to gaming. It did a lot for gaming. So I mean,
agreed.
it's a solid game.
Hmm.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So how about a hidden gem, a game that you don't feel gets enough attention?
I really like Broom Service.
Broom.
Broom Service.
Okay.
If you know about it or not, that's the thing. Lots of fun. You play as a bunch of witches, and you have to gather resources. And it has similar mechanics to that. Like you play a card down, and you can kind of choose. I think it's two cards. And the other interesting aspect of it is once you play your card, if anyone else has played that card that round, they have to play it right then and there, which means that they actually may not be able to play it, similar to Dastardly Drivers, because they have to play it early, and maybe they're not on that spot yet, or they wanted to play their other card first. And there's also like a do it easy mode versus hard or more intense mode. I forget the terminology right now. But if you play it as like the intense mode, if someone else has played that card, they could play it in the intense mode, and the person who originally played it doesn't get any benefits at all.
Oh
So you're
dang.
also like, oh, should I do it like in the more intense mode or not? And then you're like, hey, how do you plan it? Because would they have played that card too, or like would this other player have played it? So you're also that similar kind of like you've locked in your choice. So it's like, okay, do I risk it and play it in the again, I forget the terminology, but yeah, in the easy mode or in the more intense mode. A lot of fun. Doesn't have the same building of new maps, so it's the same map every time. But again, how you place it and where you start and the things you can collect are all different every time.
Fun. No, I'm gonna have to look into that one for sure. I'm always looking for those hidden gem games. Those are the ones that fill up um, my shelf of shame, the ever growing, never shrinking shelf of shame. So do you have a solid shelf of shame of games that you own you never played?
I actually used to. I actually moved a couple years ago and pawned them off on other people to make their shelf of shame a little bit bigger than
Oh,
mine. So
I
I
work
was sort of,
hard. Yeah, I
yeah,
work hard. I try to get one or two new games in a
yeah.
week. Problem is, every one or two that I get rid of, or I play and get off the shelf of shame, one or two more come in
Hmm.
to kind of fill in the gap on the. I have a physical shelf of shame, which is just off camera here,
Hmm.
that holds way too many games. But yeah, it's hilarious.
Hmm.
So
So easy, and
yeah,
you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna love this game. You play it once, you love it, and then oh, it's yeah, just put it aside, collects dust, and oh, maybe I
yeah.
haven't played that in a while anymore.
I do try to cull my collection every so often. I've got actually a gigantic box on the other side here where I'm getting ready to ship it off to a company just because I'm like, my cousin's like,
Hmm.
but they don't offer that much money. I'm like, I don't care. it gets a giant box out of my
Hmm.
house. So, I mean, sometimes you just got to do it. You don't,
Hmm.
I don't have unlimited space like some people, so got
Exactly.
to do what I got to do what I got to do.
Hmm.
So, if I made it out there to, where are you in Mountain Time? Mountain Time's a big time zone. Where are you in
Hmm.
Mountain Time?
I'm currently in Calgary, Alberta.
Oh, so you're up in Canada.
I am up in Canada. Yes.
That explains why you pronounce it Catan. See,
Yes. That
Canadians
makes
say
sense.
it. Yeah, all of you Canadians say it wrong. I don't know why. Uh,
Well, maybe all the
everyone,
Canadians are just the same now.
everybody from Canada says it that way. If I make it up to Alberta, Canada, what game is currently sitting out on your table? What is your current favorite game?
um, I've actually been playing a lot of Timeline. It's a lot of fun. Very easy to play. Unfortunately, with the replayability of it, if you play it too often, you kind of start to remember where some of those dates are.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's not a play it all the time type of games. But every now and then, especially after it's been a while, you're like, okay, yeah, like when was this post-it note made, or like all these different all the different
we
things,
like
and it's just like cool.
we like to shuffle just decks together,
Yeah,
and then you're trying to
exactly.
remember. Wait, when was that invented? Was that
Mhm.
invented before or after the space shuttle? When
Yeah,
like I don't know, man. And
yeah.
what? When did that song come out on the radio? I'm like, oh.
Hmm.
But no, Timeline's a good one. Like you said, though, the replayability can be kind of down, but it is fun. And yeah, you get a couple different decks, two or three of them together. Even
Hmm.
what we started doing is shuffling two or three together, and then I can't remember how many is in the deck to begin with, 25 or
Hmm.
30, something like that. We just randomly draw that many out.
Mm, yeah,
And so we'll have like three decks, and you don't know how many of which one we just kind of,
yeah.
and then you try to play it, and it really it does up the challenge because you don't have, because in your mind, and especially like you said, if you play it a lot, you'll have staples in your mind like when this happened,
Mm,
but if that card's not in the ones that you're playing, you don't have that reference, and so
hmm.
I do think if you get a, oh man, there's what, six or eight of them now. I
Yeah, I have
think
like a I think diversity and like a math and science one. And that one's interesting because it's like, yeah, like the equal sign versus the plus sign. You're like, those are different? Like what?
they didn't come out together. It's like this
Yeah.
was at 8 a.m. This was at noon. Come on now.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
but yeah, they have a couple different sets out there. I know, and they relatively cheap, plays
Mhm.
fast. It's a good time.
Mm,
So, but yeah, I like it. That's a good one.
yes.
Uh, yeah. So, what about a game that has colors? What color do you like to play as?
See, I'm always a green guy. I love green. It's just always been one of my go-tos, but unfortunately, one of the other guys I make the game with also really loves green. So it's always butting heads on that one because it's like, oh, I want to be green. Oh, I want to be green. So like,
There's only three of you.
I know exactly. Statistically, how likely is that?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so especially if I've played with other groups of friends, I'm always green. Going back to this one, I'm like, oh right, have to fight for it.
Somebody else I interviewed said that he and his daughter like the same color, so they do a mini
Mm.
game before the game
Oh,
to see who gets to be the color.
smart, smart.
Gotta lock that away for next time.
Yes, exactly.
So, what about Kickstarter? You mentioned it earlier.
Mhm.
Are you active on it? Do you back Kickstarters?
Not as much as I used to. When I was first getting into board games, I did it a lot. And then actually one game that came out, and this actually really, really stuck with me to this day. I was making board games. It was one of the first ones I did was called Story War. Lots of fun. It came out at the same time, and like a lot of those story-driven games, like Once Upon a Time, came out where you're trying to build a story using the cards. So in this case, you have a location, you have a person, and you have an item, or a person or character. And basically, this is the rotating judge, and you have to argue why your character would win a fight in this situation against other characters. A lot of fun, great expansions. Like it was a really good time. And I remember like I got an email from them like afterwards being, oh yeah, like we're gonna do a few other things with it. We're very excited. And then a few months later, hey, company's defunct, we ran out of money, kind of stretched ourselves too thin. If you didn't get a copy, like let me know, I'll buy it I'll make sure you get it out of my own pocket, but we ran out of money. And I was just like, wow, like it seemed like it was going so well for them, but somehow something happened. Again, I don't know all the details. And that really stuck with me because as we were making Crime Wave, that was always in the back of my mind, being like, this is fun. Like, I really want to make on my first board game. I love board games. This is really cool, amazing opportunities. But I also don't want to, lose a bunch of money on it. It's that balance. And when we did the Kickstarter for Crime Wave, there was a lot of discussions that we had about what's our minimum, making sure that we're not gonna, have to spend any extra money out of pocket if this works, but then doesn't. And it was through a different printing and fulfillment service. I'm actually a little thankful that the Kickstarter did not work, because then we did find the Game Crafter, which, as I said, it's a lot more guaranteed. And they do the printing, they do the shipping. It's more local than this printer was in China, so the shipping was really, really expensive. So very thankful that we did find the Game Crafter. Now, you don't necessarily make as much money as you would if you get all the copies yourself and ship them out and do it all yourself. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting the product out. And if we make a couple bucks, make a couple bucks. But the big thing is not losing more than that.
Oh, I understand. Trust me, I understand. I've had in all my Kickstarters, I've had only 2 not come in. One, the guy just went radio silent. And it was just which is really, in this guy, it's really sad because it was just a print play.
Mm-hmm.
All this guy had to do is finish the paper and PDFs and email it out. Mm-hmm. And he emailed out the light version, like his demo version. And we were all like, this is great. It was a little like flicking dexterity racing game and stuff. We were all excited and stuff. And then like, he just disappeared. Mm-hmm. And I was always like, that guy always confused me, because I'm like, dude, literally finish the PDFs. Mm-hmm. Like, it was a couple other tracks you owed us and a couple other cars with a couple other teams, and that's it. Like, your artwork isn't anything expensive or fantastic. It's just generic, top view of a track, nothing crazy. And then the other one was a company that shocked everybody, that they decided to just up and cancel in the like, because this was their 6th game that they did on Kickstarter, and they just went belly up. And it's like, this is your 6th one. Like, how do you mess that up? So that was kind of a disappointment. But everything else, knock on wood, I've had come through. Whether that the games were good or not is not the point. You get those games, you're like, oh, I played that one, and you toss it.
That was a time. I did it.
Yeah, I mean, I felt bad. I mean, a couple of them, one of them I really got sucked into, and I was like, oh man, this is awesome. And then I played it once, and I'm like, meh.
Yeah.
Meh. And just kind of moved on. But yeah, Kickstarter, it's interesting. The Game Crafter, the big difference, in my opinion, is the minimum order quantity, right? The MOQ. Mm-hmm. The Game Crafter won. Where most of the ones in China are 1,000 now, and there's only a few companies left that'll do 500. And I believe the company I use out of China, I believe now requires a 1,000 for new clients, but we can still order 500, which is good, as we were kind of experimenting with some new games. We're like, I don't know if I want to spend enough for 1,000 copies of this game. But so you never know. But yeah, definitely. I mean, the Game Crafter is great for anything, any game related thing. Like, if you lost a part to a game, you could probably go find some suitable replacement on the Game Crafter. If you have like a fun little idea for a party, for a kid or your family or whatever, go do it. I mean, it's not that hard to do. It's pretty low stakes. but like it may not be the most cost effective because you're buying one, but you're buying one, or even if you bought like 10 for your family, it's
Hmm.
still not that bad.
Yes.
So, but no, JT's got a good thing going there in Wisconsin. So it's been great. So before we started recording, you said you said you were working on a third game, but something
Hmm.
happened. What happened?
So we went to a global game jam. Now, global game jam in general is more about video game focused. So there's a theme, um, generally a pretty broad theme. I actually forget what the theme was when we did this, but we're like, you know what? Let's do a board game instead. And I think there was one or two other groups. One did an escape room actually, which was really cool, building around this theme. So we built this game, a lot of fun. It started as like you start as a full co-op, so it's best with 4 players. Start as full co-op. You gather resources together. After a set amount of turns, the kind of game shifts to like the part two, where you split off into 2 teams of 2, and then from there you gather your resources independently, get victory points, and try to beat as a 2v2. And I really loved this idea because like it's an interesting mechanic because not very many games. Well, there's Betrayal where you start together, but then it's one versus everybody else
One versus
normally.
many, yeah.
But splitting off into 2 exact teams afterwards is an interesting one. It's like, it's a mechanic that I don't think gets used very often, and we're really, really enjoying it. Got the demo out. We played around with it. Didn't really do much with it. Took a bit of a break from it. Actually, to we pivoted to Dastardly Drivers because we saw this contest, so we took shelved it for a bit. Worked on Dastardly Drivers, and we went back and we're like, you know what? Like, it's not fun. Like, it was interesting and cool, like something we never really don't really see very often. But then we were playing and we're like, this first part just kind of sucks because it's like you're a full team, but you still kind of that you're not going to be a team later. So you're like, okay, how do we make sure that you're also in a little bit of a better spot for your next team versus the full co-op. So we tried around with it, and it ended up being like, you know what, let's just kind of scrap it. And that's the thing is, we're a small, we're 3 guys. We do it to have fun and hang out and make something we love. And if we're not enjoying it, you know, there's a law of diminishing returns. You just yank it. Like no point in trying to put any more effort into it to polish a turd, so to speak. And we're like, you know what, let's pivot. Let's make something new. That's why we're here. We're not here to, it's not our main source of income. It's for fun. So let's change it up. We kept a few of the themes that we've acquired over the course of the iterations of the game, but now it's a completely different game.
No, I get it. The reason I wanted you to tell that story is that's kind of what happened with our first game that we put together. We started off, it was my partner, his idea was a stained glass window game.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was about building a stained glass window. Mm-hmm. And as you completed polygons, you got points for how many corners you had. Well, we played it once and it like hurt our eyeballs. Like it just hurt to look at because the lines and the colors, and it was like, oh my gosh. So we had to pivot because the gameplay was okay, but then we pivoted to a farming theme, which is what we ended up landing on, and we did fences. And so it was, but we had to do the same idea. Like, okay, this idea did not work. What can we keep? What can we scrap? And how do we move forward? And that's exactly what we had to do with fences. And it was, sometimes you just have to do that. It's your ability to roll with the punches and to, take the lemons and make lemonade. As they say.
Exactly.
But it was fun. It was a good, good exercise and going back to the drawing board and keeping, like you said, what can we keep? What themes? What mechanics? So, what's the expected delivery date on that one?
We're taking a bit of a break now that Dastardly Drivers is out. We're kind of slowly jumping back into it, but with holiday season coming up pretty soon, we might kind of cool the brakes on it a little bit, but still iterate on it. I'm hoping kind of mid next year we'll kind of start to get more things finalized. Definitely not like out mid next year, but hopefully next year, because now this would be 2 years in a row of a game a year. So the hope is to kind of still keep that cadence for at least a little bit while we have ideas and while we want to try and make new things.
Oh, I understand that. Yeah, I've been attending a lot of game conventions and game design conventions and stuff like that. And with the publishing branch that we have, Bearded Board Games, I've been finding a lot of games from people who don't want to go through the headache of publishing their own games.
Mm-hmm.
And then talking my business partner into signing him like, hey, we should do this game. And so now we're trying to do one published game by somebody else and one published game from us a year. And this year we just missed. Both games aren't going to make, neither game's going to make it out this year. But hopefully, so 2024, watch out. Well, we should be able to get about 3 or 4 games out. 3 of them are done and ready to go. It's just a matter of building that audience, getting it together. That's the advantage of, well, I guess, that's definitely the advantage of Kickstarters. If you can get the audience built, and get them to come out when you hit launch, it's definitely. But yeah, like you said earlier, it's kind of scary. It's kind of risky. You don't, you just. I mean, it's like my friend was always like, "Oh man, what if you do like, what if you hit, like 1,000 copies?" I'm like, if I sell 1,000 copies, I'll have enough money to bring on other people to help me out.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I have, a couple hundred, I can do that myself. But man, I could, I was like, you see some of these Kickstarters, man, they do like tens of thousands of backers or, millions of dollars. And I'm like, yeah, if I had that problem, I could buy, I could get a pledge manager. I could work with this kind of company. But when it's just, a few hundred, 500, 600, we can work that out.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too, because like, you don't want to, again, it's actually like in my opinion, the part that you think would be easy, but it's actually the most difficult part. Because again, it's a game you made it, you love it, it's your little baby. But how do you get it out there? How do you tell people about it? And again, Kickstarter is also great for that because with the way to find new games. But it's definitely something that you don't always think about as being a problem. It's like, oh yeah, I have this great game. People will just show up. People will come. But it's like, if you build it, they will come. It's like, well, no. You got to make all the networking. Do things like this for recognition and that's the part that I feel like you always undervalue or under think about because you're like, you think about the technical side. Oh yeah, it's good. It's a great game. But how do you know?
Well,
and that word of mouth out there. Yeah.
Well, and now with the not the uprising, that's not the right word. That's not the right word. But it's a good word, but not the right word. With Tabletop Simulator kind of being what it is now, and you can get some playtesting going on that and that sort of thing. Like I think that it's just there's so many different avenues, and crowdfunding and crowdsourcing has evolved so much, especially over the last 5 years. Even when when we did ours, it was 2018. Now it's like, just been 5 years and it's already, the landscape's completely changed from what it used to be. And and when we got into it in 2018, it already massively changed from what it used to be. And, now it's, the board gaming community is there, but it's noisy. There's so much noise, but yet you have to just, I think when you talk to people and you read some of these, every Tuesday when all the new board games hit Kickstarter and I get 100 emails, I always look at them and go, this one's not going to make it. This one's not going to make it, because there's a lot of, I don't want to say big no-nos or whatever, but you can tell when you look at some of them, like, yeah, this person just didn't, they'd have been okay 10 years ago, but not today. And it's kind of a shame that it's gone that way. But in the end, it does allow a lot of people to get their games out there, and doing it responsibly is the important part, I guess. And the Game Crafter is definitely a safe way to do it. Like I said, JT's got a good thing going over there. So uh, definitely, you can, like I said, go to thegamecrafter.com. Type in Dastardly. Can you look up Dastardly Fun Entertainment, or do they have to type in Crime Wave or Dastardly Drivers?
Well, definitely, Dastardly Drivers will bring it up. Um, but let's double check here because sometimes it does work and sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, if you search Dastardly Fun, it will show up Dastardly Drivers and Crime Wave. So yes,
Okay, there you go.
very easy.
Yeah. Any other way for people to reach out to you?
Yes, we do have Instagram as well, Dastardly Fun Entertainment. It is our wonderful logo, the smiling face. Always be dastardly. And yeah, that's the great. We also have a website that you can find. We do have it linked through the Game Crafter as well. But Instagram is the best way to reach out to us.
Excellent. Well, Spencer, I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed both of your games. They both are a lot of fun. I look forward to more Dastardly Drivers. Like we said, there's that game has so much potential to just keep adding to it because
Hmm.
hey, I got this idea for a new type of terrain or a new
Exactly.
type of weapon or something along those lines, and you could just do like mini add-on packs, with no problem. It was a 2 to 6 player. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, that's. I mean, and anytime you can get 6 players into a game that's not going to take 3 hours to play,
Hmm.
it's always a good thing. So, but yeah, it's a lot. Both games are a lot of fun. We'll make sure we have
Thank you.
links to them in the show notes. Um, Anything else you want to talk about or say?
Um, I think the biggest thing that I really enjoy too is kind of about this idea of expansions. And you touched on it, especially for Dastardly Drivers. And I feel like a lot of times people, especially with Kickstarter, they'll try to make these big games with all these expansions, but the base game just doesn't work without them. So that's why I also really feel like getting a good game out there, getting people's hands, have normal people play it, people who don't know the rule book inside and out, to play it, to iterate on it, give feedback on it, and then you can make those really fun and really interesting expansions. And I feel like that's something that we always are so conscious about all the time. Is again, we want our base game to be solid and tight and awesome, but we also want to be able to add in expansions later. But we never want to push the expansions. It's like the cart before the horse sometimes with those. So get a
Yeah.
always with a plan, get a good solid base game, and then if expansions come later, they come later, and they'll be well thought out as well.
Just a thought: if your game needs your expansions, it's not an expansion; it's part of the base game.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
yeah, that's what we did for Fences. Though we stripped Fences down to just the core game, and then all
Hmm.
the other ideas that we had, we held off and got just the core game together and got it out there. Then we came back and released all of our expansion ideas at one time, one
Hmm.
box. Here they are, all 9 expansions. We're done.
Yeah,
Now, if we come up with anything else along the way, there'll be small little
yeah,
add-ons that you can do. But I think you're right. But like I said, if you need the expansions to make your game not broken, then it's not an expansion as part of your game. And
yes,
you're right.
exactly.
A lot of companies, especially, and what's weird to me is it's usually like the $1 million campaigns that have that problem. They have a
Hmm.
very boring base game, but they're offering so much, so
Hmm.
many expansions, so many miniatures, so many cards, so many tokens. And it's like, okay, I got suckered into one. I won't mention it by name, but I got suckered into one where the base game was okay. But
Hmm.
like I feel like the expansions, you almost needed them to make the game more enjoyable. Like the base game was okay, it was good. But
Hmm.
man, you had to have like all this, and then but it took up three
Hmm.
feet of
Hmm.
shelf space, and I'm like, man, I'm not gonna read through all this and learn all this. This is too much.
Way too much for
But
the first time playing too.
yeah, just the base game itself took over an hour to play, but it took like 20 minutes to explain, and then you had to get all the stuff out. Then you had to put it all back, and
Hmm.
it was too much. But it made over $1 million. So what the heck do I know, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing is just throwing things at the board and seeing what sticks. And yeah, sometimes it works out really well, and sometimes it doesn't. Really depends on the idea, the time, and the themes, and yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea anymore. I think the algorithms and stuff are they're not broken, but they definitely need to be updated to what they are now as opposed to what they used to be. So anyway, thanks again. I will let you go back to Mountain Time. We had a little snafu with time zones, but man, time zones get me all sorts of twisted up.
Every time, yes.
I'm always like, so is that ahead of me, behind me? If it's what time is it now versus what time is it there? I'll never figure it out. I will never say I'll figure it out, but you
gotta do your best. That's all you can do.
It's all you can do. Just flounder until you get it right.
Exactly.
So as usual, if you guys want to reach out to me, it's facebook.com/eatlunchandboardgame, eatlunchandboardgame.com. And you can always email me at eatlunchandboardgame@gmail.com. And remember, board games build bridges. When you're gaming, why not be comfy? Go over to supportplayer.org. Click on the cards, pieces, and dice to get some merch. These t-shirts are some of the most comfortable I have ever worn. That's supportplayer.org, and there's a link on eatlunchandboardgame.com.